and non-members of the press an opportunity to reflect and reaffirm our commitment to upholding the rights of the media. This is because time and time again, as demonstrated throughout history, the power of the pen has been proven to be more potent than the power of the sword. The stories that you tell, the articles that you write, the videos that you edit and release on your various platforms have the power to shape public perception. The media has helped to enthrone leaders and topple them. The media, especially in Nigeria, has played a crucial role as a watchdog at various points of our momentous history. However, it's often said, with great power comes great responsibility. What I mean by this is just as the executive has a responsibility to enforce our laws, the judiciary a responsibility to interpret these laws, and we in the legislature have a responsibility to enact these laws. You in the media, especially those here in the Senate press corps, have a responsibility to tell our stories in an independent, impartial, accountable, and truthful way. The media must evolve beyond carrying ordinary propaganda and sensational news to sell newspapers and increase viewership, to pushing out truthful, verifiable, and pertinent information to the public. This year's commemoration of the World Press Freedom Day, which is the media's role in advancing a peaceful, just, and inclusive society, also emphasizes the fact that your stories play a major role in charting the course of our national development. Hence, today I would like to encourage you all to strive to always attain a certain level of substance in your reporting of our issues. I urge you all to look beyond the propaganda that is sometimes been sponsored down here in the Senate and judge us based on facts and figures about our genuine performance. These facts and figures are readily available. Therefore, judge us by our actions. You participate indirectly in all our daily plenary, committee, and oversight functions. You are a constant feature around here. So please let the public know, understand how the Senate is working for them and its attitude on being people-centered. This is why we continue to pass motion after motion to call attention to critical national issues. We have passed critical laws that will make positive impact on the standard of living and rate of development in our country. We have investigated key issues that have helped to expose corruption in high government offices. We have equally treated petitions from people who feel oppressed but believes the Senate could help them seek redress and get justice, instead of resorting to prolonged litigations. In less than 2 years, this Senate has already cleared close to 76 petitions. If you go back the records, you see that the 6th Senate cleared only 6 public petitions in 4 years, and the 7th Senate did 87 petitions in 4 years. In the media, we sometimes hear play up of the angle of executive-legislative friction or face-off. We hear about the Senate rejecting the executive nominees. But again, when you look at the figures, we have received 196 nominees from the executive. We have confirmed 185. We have only rejected 11. By a percentage-wise, I think that is over 95% we have rejected. We rejected 4 from NDDC, 3 from non-executive ambassadors, non-career ambassadors, 1 EFCC, 1 Electric Regulatory Commission, and 2 from NCC. You ask, is that a legislative arm that is opposing government's confirmation? Additionally, too, not many people know about the National Assembly economic priority bills that is making its way through the Senate. Last week, the report of the PIB was laid on the floor, the furthest stage this bill has ever got in the history of this country. While taking all that together, we have economic reform bills that will create jobs, millions of jobs for our people. These are major milestones that will make the public proud of the representatives. But Nigerians will only know through the messages that you put across. In the same vein, the Senate has been working to create more avenues for funding of social development issues. To this end, if you have observed from the beginning of the Senate, we have emphasized on legislation in the area of infrastructure, private sector participation. For example, the bill on the Nigerian Railway Corporation, the bill on the Ports Authority, and the 4 bills we have on roads funds, National Transport Commission. These are bills that we believe that when passed will enable private sector to take away some of the burden of infrastructure funding from government. It is the burden of infrastructure funding that does not enable government to spend more money in education and healthcare. And it's only a National Assembly, a Senate, that is forward-thinking, that has begun to apply us with this. It is our hope that by the time we pass this bill, government will have more money for health and education. The question again then is, are people, the Nigerians we represent, being given the opportunity to understand these issues? I want to appeal that let us encourage our members to push for substance and to sell themselves as credible authorities in the realm of journalism. Today's times are different from the times of your predecessors. Those who were here 10 years ago or 20 years ago did not have the responsibility that you have. These are different times. These are times where we do know that the pressure of being able to sell the newspapers is always high. But I think at the same time, like us, you have the responsibility to do what is best for our country. On this note, let me once again congratulate you on this day, congratulate you all for the great work that you're doing, and enjoy you to take one message out of today. Let us push for substance.
And lastly, on the program for this week, Senator-elect Bassi Etim has appealed to the Senate leadership to swear him in as the Senator of the Federal Republic without any further delay. He addressed Senate Press Corps on Tuesday.
I got the judgment on the 27th of February 2017, and then INEC complied on the 6th and issued me with certificate of returns to be sworn in as a Senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I've been coming here to assume work, being sworn in, assume work as the Senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Today, I came in the morning hoping that I would be sworn in, but that has not been done. And it is a good time I bring this to the notice and attention of my constituents that I have come and I am yet to be sworn in, and that the swearing in is the business of the leadership of the Senate, which ought to take place by now. And as I speak, somebody is usurping the seat as a senator, whereas a man who has been issued with the certificate of returns, which is valid, is waiting outside. That they should all understand that any moment from now, I believe that justice will be done. Because whether we like it or not, we will definitely seek for justice, either from man or from God. But it is now time that Senate, being an institution governed by law, do the needful by ensuring that a man who has a valid certificate of returns ought to assume duty and then work and represent the people. Because as it is now, my people don't have a representation. The seat is fake and they are craving for someone to represent them. That is why I have to address them and also address the nation that the needful should be done by the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
But it seems all cases pertaining to your issue has not been concluded in court. Maybe that's why.
Not at all. There is a precedent in the Senate, just like the case of Koki East, in a pre-election matter where the judgment is given. You need to start to enjoy the fruit of your judgment. It is different from a post-election matter, which the court says you need 21 days to appeal, and if you don't appeal before the swearing-in can take place. So it is not an issue of anything pending in court. Being on appeal is of rights, just like the case of Koki East, which somebody is already on appeal, and another person has been sworn in. So this is a precedent, and this ought to be followed. That is a pace for rule of law.
For more than 3 months now,
of course, approach the leadership of the Senate, and even the clerk.
A follow-up question to that: should the Senate fail to swear you in, what should be your next line of action?
Well, I believe the Senate is guided by the rule of law, and definitely they will do the needful, because it will serve no purpose for someone to disobey the court order. It's even served better for the Senate to show a sample by obeying the court judgment, because legislature make the law. Even if a executive disobey the law, we, the makers of the law, must obey it.
Why, hearing from the Senate President, why is inauguration still hanging? Thank you very much.
The question the gentleman asked is that there is a process to this. And when I get this, I always get it from, there are always two sides to the story. I have a senator who said this is the case. I refer to legal to give me an opinion and advise me. And once they advise me on what is, I follow that and I comply. And I've explained that to the senator that I have no interest. I want the people of Akwa Ibom, which I can't remember Central, Northeast, to always be represented. I don't gain anything either way. I will follow what's the law and make it happen, and that will be the case.
That's the program for this week. Do join us next week for a fresh package. On behalf of my producers, I am Shegun Ojelade saying bye-bye.
NTA Language.
Jama'a masu kallon labaran NTA Hausa barkanmu da warhaka. Ni ne.
Ekukale lode yin wise kudedeya.
Igbo murum kachano.
Broadcasted in the language you understand better. Our programs. Transmitting on the Star Times platform 24 hours.
Àwọn onímọ̀ nípa ètò ẹ̀kọ́ lórílẹ̀-èdè Nàìjíríà.
Hukumar tara kudaden haraji ta ƙasa.
Alani na ọchịchị mba United Arab Emirates UAE.
The only channel that speaks your language.
Anyị ga-eweta akụkọ gbasara ọrịa ahụ nke wakporo obodo anyị.
Kálejì, mo kọ́kùnrin, mo kọ́bìnrin, mo kí ọmọdé, mo sì kí àgbàlagbà.
Mu kokari mu sauke nauyin alƙawarin da muka ɗauka.
Ẹ kú lẹ́yìn tèmi, ẹ káàbọ̀ sórí ètò wa ètò yín ètò obìnrin tó dángájá.
Wa ya fi cancanta a ɗauka a matsayin ɗan aikin cikin gida.
Jama'a
masu kallon tashar NTA Hausa barkamu da warhaka.
Kí ni ayẹyẹ ọdún iléyá tá máa ń ṣe lọ́dọọdún yìí rọ̀ mọ́?
NTA, you can't beat the rich.
Taxation, that depressing but constant reality on the minds of everyone.
On a particular spot might turn out to be a breeding ground for mosquitoes. Mayor Ogi for Deadline 360.
It is obvious that's a negative relationship between taxes and business.
The government in bringing development to the grassroots. For Deadline 360, I'm Emmanuel Lene.
To generate electricity through nuclear energy, precautionary measures has to be taken.
I am Muhammad Nasir reporting for Deadline 360.
Laws and regulations guiding revenue generation in Nigeria.
If the rent gets down to the landlords and business operators, it will eventually make them increase their service charges.
It's good to have you join us this week. I'm Hawa Sali.
Federal Executive Council approves the concession of some rail projects and establishment of the Office for Trade Negotiation.
Former Vice President Namadi Sambo at Aso Villa holds closed-door meeting with Acting President Yemi Osinbajo.
Wife of the President, Aisha Muhammadu Buhari, meets 82 rescued Chibok girls.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we examine the resuscitation of technical and vocational education in Nigeria.
The national policy on education defines vocational and technical education as that aspect of education that leads to the acquisition of practical and applied skills, as well as basic knowledge in science, technology, arts, and crafts.
Of course, Kirian, the objective is to provide trained manpower that will find solutions to the needs of citizens through the deployment of technical skills and experience. Now, this is the basis for the establishment of technical colleges, polytechnics, and specialized universities of technology in the country.
And of course, Kingsley, at the last count, there are 199 technical colleges in the country. Apart from the fact that 199 technical schools appear inadequate for a nation like Nigeria that is craving for industrialization, the big question is, what is the state of technical schools in the country?
Now, an audit by the Council for the Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria, CORE, and this took place, of course, in 2010, the audit reported that 98% of the technical colleges in the country were in a deplorable state as a battle with inadequate and obsolete equipment, inadequate or insufficient trained teachers, neglect, poor funding, as well as inappropriate linkage to industry.
Yes, of course, the problems appear endless, and this perhaps explains why Nigeria is said to lose about 900 billion naira to foreign artisans and technicians, as Nigeria lacks this manpower.
That's right, Kyria. Now, it's also no longer news that masons, carpenters, steel fabricators, plumbers, electricians, and even painters, and more, of course, frequently tilers, are foreigners from neighboring countries, such as Benin Republic, Togo, and Ghana. In fact, some go as far as China to import skilled manpower for these purposes. Kieran.
Of course. You know, this is a very worrisome situation, Kingsley, because it is happening at a time when Nigeria is battling with high unemployment rate that gives rise to youth restiveness, crimes, and other social vices. In fact, many foreign contractors simply cash in on this excuse to ship in labor from their countries, thereby depriving Nigerians the needed opportunities in those areas.
Now, with over 32,000 registered engineers and only some 6,000 technicians, technologists, and craftsmen, Nigeria's technological pyramid is clearly unhealthy. And this is against the normal ratio of 1 to 2 to 4 to 16, which is internationally accepted. Simply put, what our ratio stands for is that for one engineer working on a project, there should be 2 technologists, 4 technicians, and 16 craftsmen.
What does this portend for the economic and the growth recovery plan of the country and its ambition to become one of the most developed economies in the nearest future? These are some of the questions that we shall be interrogating on today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria. I am Kirian Umayo, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to today's edition of the program, which comes to you on the network service of the NTA.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join my colleague Kirian and also welcome you to this edition of the program, in the course of which we shall have our regular complementary segments, including newspaper reviews, business, sports, foreign, and others. Now, in the meantime, we're going over to the newsroom, and our caster this morning is Joseph Johnson. Hi, Joe.
Good morning, Kingsley. Good morning, Kirian. Thanks for joining us on the news desk at this time. The Federal Executive Council has approved a memorandum by the Ministry of Transportation seeking to commence negotiations on the concession of some rail projects. State House correspondent Jide Onifade reports that the Council also approved the setting up of a Nigerian office for trade negotiations.
The Cabinet has approved that we commence negotiation after we submitted the OBC. OBC is the outline business case that was submitted by GE. So now the transaction advisors will now commence negotiation with GE to conclude the concessioning of the narrow gauge, which starts from Lagos to Kano, Funtua, Kano and other area, and then from Port Harcourt to Maiduguri, which includes Aba, Umahia, Enugu, Makurdi, Jos.
Objectives of that office will be to help us to coordinate the various trade discussions and negotiations that we hold, and to achieve coherence in our policies so that our policies will pull our trade together. It will also help us in our implementation of the economic recovery and growth plan, because clearly there's an intention to engage and work with other countries in that process.
Still from the Aso Villa, Nigeria's former Vice President Namadi Sambo has paid a visit to acting President Yemi Osinbajo. The two had discussions behind closed doors for about an hour. In an interview with the media, the immediate past president, Vice President, said he was happy with the warm reception received from the acting president and some of his former staff, but declined when prompted to say what the visit was all about.
Visit Mr. Vice President and the acting president. As a usual, familiarization visit. As you know, former president, they visit Mr. President. And we also, as the former vice president, we visit our colleague, the vice president. I am happy to see all of you, our old colleagues here. And I want to thank you very much for this very good reception. Thank you.
In the meantime, the wife of the President, Aisha Muhammad Buhari, has assured the 82 rescued Chibok girls of her support in ensuring that they resume their normal life. Mrs. Buhari stated this when she met with the girls in Abuja.
When you were away, I met with your parents severally, and we shared their sorrows. We cried together and we prayed together. And as a result of that, I strongly believe that God answered our prayers by getting you people back to our hands safely.
As Her Excellency said, we all cried and prayed for you for so many years. And it's a great joy to have you here.
The first ordinary session of the 4th legislature of the Economic Communities of West African States, ECOWAS Parliament, has commenced with focus on finding ways of promoting development. Olayinka Ojo reports that Parliament specifically commended Nigeria's success in fighting
Make our parliament the classic institution for monitoring the commitment and adherence of member states to the integration process.
We must remain vigilant to guarantee that the regional framework for liberal trade engagement is not misused.
The Independent National Electoral Commission says its decision to fix the date for the 2019 general elections and subsequent general elections on Saturday, the 2nd of February, is to ensure timely and adequate preparation of all participants and for a more transparent procedure for elections. INEC Chairman Professor Mahmoud Yakubu said this during a visit by the United States Ambassador Sowot Simonton. Sorry about that. A bill for an act to repeal the Nigeria Postal Service Act has passed second reading at the Senate. National Assembly correspondent Waziri Zayanu reports that the bill is meant to provide for the operation and development of postal services and the establishment of the Nigeria Postal Commission.
It is proposed as a catalyst to encourage local and foreign investment in Nigeria postal industry.
This bill is well organized for its very own purpose of a modern academic and research institution.
Still talking legislative matters, the House of Representatives has passed for second reading a bill for an act to amend the Compulsory Free Universal Basic Education Act of 2004. National Assembly correspondent Ignatius Nko reports that the bill, among other issues, seeks to provide for the return of federal government book grant and to make provision for the rehabilitation of delinquent children.
Parents who are resident abroad but whose children reside in Nigeria liable to obligation imposed by the Act.
The bill for an act to establish Agricultural Price Control Agency will assist government in facilitating farming in all its ramifications.
To bring back the good old days of these commodity boards that are charged with the responsibility of stabilizing the prices of agricultural commodities,
give technical input and support to the farmers to be able to optimally produce our cash crops.
Over now to the judiciary, where the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, says Nigeria's fight against corruption is continually being reviewed in line with international standards. He stated this at the opening of the United Nations Convention Against Corruption Peer Review of Nigeria.
The undertones of all these reforms translated to the promulgation of Proceeds of Crime Act, among others, in addition to some associated whistleblowers legislative processes that are transmitted to the National Assembly for passage into law.
And that's it for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Kirian and Kinsley after the break. Stay with us.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words: run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
To the outer framers, the hat tippers,
The fringe growers, you don't need to hide anymore. Try Dettol Even Tone. It cleans and helps to reduce the appearance of blemishes caused by oil, dirt and germs, giving your skin a healthy feel for an even better you. Dettol, be 100% sure.
Dettol soap is now also available for 100 Naira only.
So what's up, sweetheart? You really look like you're up to something.
I have a secret.
Okay.
I'll be going to Europe next week.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Like you have your visa, your passport, your plane ticket?
No, not that way. Some men are helping us. We pay them, they take us through the desert, and then we cross the sea into Europe.
The desert? The sea? Isn't that the route where many have died?
Yes, it is indeed a very dangerous journey. In 2016 alone, 4,900 people died while crossing the Mediterranean Sea to enter Europe. Many were Nigerians. For the very few who survived the journey, they are forced into prostitution or other crimes just to survive. Eventually, they will be arrested and deported to Nigeria. Don't be a victim. Don't go this way.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
All right, now to business news. PENCOM releases 54 billion naira to federal government retirees. Details of these and more on business news with Joy Ozol.
Welcome to Business News. As the global shipping sector grapples with the activities of pirates on the seaways, the latest ICC International Maritime Bureau's report shows that about 43 ships and 58 seafarers were captured in the first quarter of 2017. The global report highlights persisting violence and piracy hotspots of Nigeria and around the southern Philippines, where 2 crew members were killed in February. This comes as the Nigerian government approves $186 million, about 56.9 billion naira, to procure machinery to fully combat maritime crimes in our waterways. The fund is meant to acquire 3 new ready-for-war ships, 3 aircrafts, 12 vessels, and 20 amphibious vehicles to combat the menace of piracy in the Gulf of Guinea. The National Pension Commission this week released the accrued benefits of retired workers of ministries, departments and agencies of the federal government who retired from service between January and August 2016. The head corporate communications PENCOM, Emeka Onora, in a statement confirmed that the total amount released for payment of the retirees was about 54 billion naira. The pensioners are urged to contact their pension fund administrators to commence the process of collecting their retirement benefits. The National Bureau of Statistics, in its April release on Nigeria's inflation rate, shows that prices for food items such as beans and garri have significantly increased. Another commodity affected by the spike is cement, which has increased by 17.3%, a trend that economic experts say calls for upward review of the purchasing power of workers.
I think the issue of the minimum living standard benchmark for Nigeria should be addressed. And the strength of a nation comes from their purchasing power of their currency. What is the purchasing power of Nigerian currency? So these are the necessary issues that should be addressed. And the situations in Ghana, the country's inflation rises to 13.0% in April. The country's statistics office said on Wednesday that higher transport costs helped drive Ghana's annual inflation rate up to 13.0% in April from 12.8% the previous month. Reports indicate that the government of President Nana Akufo-Addo wants to slow inflation to 11.2% by the end of the year as part of its drive to restore macroeconomic stability under a 3-year aid deal with the International Monetary Fund. Finally, on the stock market, equities closed on a positive note on Wednesday as the Nigerian Stock Exchange or Share Index appreciated by 2.95% to sustain its upward trend. Now a quick check at latest closing figures on the floor of the exchange.
The stock market report concludes business news on the program.
All right, thank you very much there, Joy Uzo, for the business news. Next for us, we're taking a look at the front pages of some of today's newspapers.
And joining us as usual to look at stories trending in today's dailies is our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Toyabe. Bayo, it's good to have you again, as always.
Thank you, Kirian. Good morning. Good morning, Kinsley.
Right, Bayo, pleasure to have you join us. We have a number of newspapers this morning. Let's begin by taking a look at the front page of This Day newspaper. This Day newspaper has as its late story, that's just below the nameplate of This Day. It says, Kano Assembly constitutes committee to probe Sanusi. Sanusi, of course, is the Emir of Kano. Kano Assembly constitutes committee to probe Sanusi, and it has a rider, cleric, arraigned for insulting Emir. And below that, there's another headline that's, of course, that's a follow-up copy. It says, Lai Mohammed, that's the kicker, controversy over Buhari's handover letter, needless distraction. And it has a rider, FEC, Federal Executive Council, approves negotiations for Lagos-Kano and Port Harcourt-Maiduguri rail lines concession. Now, above the nameplate of the paper, there are two other headlines, one on oil and gas, and then the other, of course, on the banking sector. Shell commences Transfocados pipeline testing, and oil price rebounds to $50 as U.S. inventories drop. The other headline says Moody's, that's a ratings agency, assigns stable outlook on Nigerian banking sector. Details of that story can be found on page 10.
All right, I have here the Independent for today, and above the nameplate we have we are making progress on a restructuring of $1.2 billion loan. That's from one of the major communication giants in Africa, that's Etisalat. All right, now the main story on Independent today, that's the lead story, actually, is Soludo to CBN. Stop playing politics with foreign exchange. Well, that's an area like Bayo to talk about, was very important. Now, below that, we have Senate proves alleged fraud in BPP certified contracts. That's on page 4. That's where you get that story. And close to that, towards the right, we have 2 Nigerians shot dead in South Africa. Details of that report is on page 5. Now, below the photo story, we have a shake-up in military as it deploys 147 GOCs and officers. Now, towards the left, that by the side of the photo story, FEC approves creation of Nigerian Trade Negotiation Office. That's one of the stories trending. It's on page 4 as well of National Independent. Kinsley.
All right, Bayo, let's
yes,
have your take on some of the stories we've read.
Let's start with the issue from South Africa. Again, we have lost 2 compatriots in South Africa. This is reported to have happened at Cape Town. 2 Nigerians have been shot in mysterious circumstances. An end needs to be put to the xenophobia that is going on in South Africa. The other story that Kiri invited me to talk about is regards the monetary policy of the central bank, which the former central bank governor expressed opinion about it. You see, the issues with the economy is that it's not a 1+1 problem that gives you 2. Everybody comes with their own postulations, and the good thing is that everybody about our reaching proffering solutions towards resolving the monetary policy problem. But the positive thing is that even the IMF only yesterday came up to approve of the initiatives, which they have already predicted is going to yield about 1.9% increase in the status of the economy. So that's positive. Now, coming to the report about Kano, Daily Trust reports that Kano State House of Assembly has constituted an 8-man committee to investigate allegations against the Emir of Kano. Some of the allegations are accusing state governor and the legislature of mismanaging resources when they traveled to China for 1 month. The State Assembly said they were in China for only 4 days. Also attacking President Muhammadu Buhari at public gathering in contravention of the culture of the traditional institution. Thirdly, assigning his daughter to represent him, which is tarnishing the image of the emirate. And fourthly, alleged embezzlement of emirate resources. This had been denied by Mahir Bashir Wali, who called a press conference and explained the expenditure. However, the State House of Assembly has the 8-man panel that is to investigate. Meanwhile, the governors of Sokoto, Kaduna, Borno, Katsina, and Niger have already made overtures to intervene in the temperature that is rising in Kano between the government and the emir. The Nigerian army has effected some changes at its command posts. One div is now to be commanded by Major General A.M. Diko. Major General I. Atairu is to take over as from Leo Irabo as the theater commander of the Operation Lafia Dole. Meanwhile, he moves on to the International Joint Task Force. Meanwhile, there are the postings too for 3rd Division, 81 Division, Tradoc, and NATRAC, as well as acting GOC for 7th Division.
All right, by the story, of course, we discussed that briefly yesterday. That's on the status of the acting president, Yemi Oshibajo. We still have that. That's still trending on the front pages of some of the papers. It's the lead story, by the way, for the authority. It says, with the kicker Buhari's absence, Oshibajo is fully in charge. This is attributed again to the Minister of Information and says dispute over Buhari's letter a distraction. And federal government opens Global Trade Negotiations Office. Kirian, and thereby, as we said yesterday, look, the Vice President is the Deputy Chair of the Federal Executive Council. Now, in the absence of the President, he presides, at the Federal Executive Council meeting. In the absence of the President, and he being acting President, has presided over the Federal Executive Council meeting that took place yesterday. So,
if you ask me, I would say it's political semantics.
Absolutely.
Simple, because the Constitution is clear. And yesterday, what was about to start as a storm in the teacup was needed right there in the Senate by the Senate President.
That's right.
And he ruled the honorable, the distinguished senator out of order. And so what we are experiencing is just the usual political dialogue. Look for an issue that is of currency and begin to express opinion about it.
All right, acting President Yemi Oshibajo is in charge.
Yes, be that as it may, whatever that it is, he is in charge. And he has personally said so, that I am fully in charge. So the debate over that, to me, as you said, is a political semantics. Now, I have the, before Kinsley, or you are continuing on that?
No, that's some of the stories bios are already taken from the front page of the authority. It said the redeployment, army redeploys 147 generals and others in major shake-up. That's on page 4. That's above the nameplate of the authority newspaper, as well as the probe. The Kano begins probe of Emir Sanusi. Again, that's on page 4. But there's a story there relating to Ogidi. It says jubilation in Ogidi as appeal court ends tussle. That story can be found in greater detail on page 2 of the authority.
All right. Now, on Daily Trust, we also have as headline story, Kano Assembly probes Emir Sanusi as in other newspapers. And now both the nameplate, we have an ex-FCT minister remanded in prison custody.
Yeah, just before Bio comes in, let's take a brief look at the front page of the New Telegraph. New Telegraph, above the nameplate, we'll take one headline from there, says Senate probes alleged fraudulent contract awards at BPP. Senate probes alleged fraudulent contract awards. BPP stands for Bureau of Public Procurement. Details of the story can be found on page 2. And then below that, you have a window of other headlines. The remand of former FCT minister in Kuje prison. Okowa, Delta State Governor, expresses worry over 7 billion naira monthly wage bill. And local government poll, Tinubu asks aspirants to withdraw for consensus candidates. And Umbu challenges retirement, demands DIG rank. Details of that story can be found on page 5. Bye.
Yes. My sympathy and pity goes to the judges in the courts. We have seen a successive ruling that have sent some prominent Nigerians into prison while their bail conditions are being perfected. And this has caused eyebrow. Bail conditions are at the discretion of the presiding judges. People blame the courts that when it is an ordinary man, they don't hesitate in sending them to jail as a result of bailing. And when it comes to prominent men, people raise eyebrow that in personal recognition, they ought to have been recognized and allowed to go home because of their previous positions, they are expected not to join bail. So head or tail, the court loses. So but the important thing is that in a situation like this, the court uses its discretion and care has to be taken so as not to ruffle political nerves, because sometimes this causes political anxiety in some of the communities.
Well, that's that's fine. I mean, the simple understanding of bail in criminal procedure is, you know, a guarantee that the defendant would attend the hearing, the trial, when the time comes for him to. Yes. That's why, of course, you have the surety for the bail and the various conditions that are normally expected. As you said, there are some capital offences, of course,
that are not bailable.
I was going to say that because the offences also matter in taking of decisions, even by the courts, because they don't understand that, look, this man, you are there for committing some level of a criminal offence.
Well, that's
allegedly
offences are categorized into two broad areas: misdemeanor and felonies. And then, of course, it depends on the gravity of it all. All right, Bayo, that's the much that we can take today. Tomorrow is Friday. I'm sure you're looking forward to that.
Yes, tomorrow is Friday.
We're taking a short break now. When we return, we'll be dealing with the state and status of technical and vocational education in Nigeria and what can be done to revitalize it.
Hear the call of change. Stand up, Nigeria. Change is here and it's going to stay. Change begins with you. Oh yeah, make we go. Go to so let the change begin from within. Look at you, oh Geruola. Change begins with you and me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me.
From the south-south to the northeast, southeast to the northwest, southwest to the north-central, the Future Assured project and its components, Get Involved, is restoring hope to millions of Nigerian women and children.
We are actually doing a lot under Future Assured, the program of Her Excellency Mrs. Aisha Muhammadu Buhari. And I believe what we are doing so far is impacting positively on the lives of women and children in Nigeria, particularly those in the internally displaced camps across the nation.
Get Involved supports the Future Assured initiative. Email programs@futureassured.org.ng. Future Assured, promoting and protecting the lives of Nigerian women and children.
All right, you're still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Technical and vocational education have been recognized as key to industrial and economic growth of any country, as it facilitates the training of suitable manpower that is relevant to production. What is the state of Nigeria's technical and vocational education? Timothy Yusuf has this background report.
Education is considered as the driving force of human development, social mobility and socio-economic development. However, it is also agreed that type and quality of education a nation offers to its citizens reflects on the level of progression of that nation. Technical education, as enshrined in the Nigerian National Policy on Education, is concerned with qualitative technological human resources development directed towards a national pool of skilled and self-reliant craftsmen, technicians and technologists in technical and vocational fields. Unfortunately, despite all the significance of technical and vocational education, Nigeria appears to have devoted little attention to it. Many challenges ranging from weak policies, embezzlement of funds meant for technical education, lack of trained teachers, inadequate facilities, brain drain, poor staff remuneration, among others, are the stories that characterize the sector. Experts have pointed out that the situation is one of the major reasons for the high unemployment rate, poverty and unabated crimes in the society. They call for the nation to redirect its attention to technical and vocational education to encourage self-reliance and sustainable means of livelihood, which technical education provides. This is because employers of labor today demand more skills than they did in the past. This is even more crucial as Nigeria strives to become a productive nation that produces what it needs and exports the excess. On Good Morning Nigeria today, experts are assembled to discuss the crisis in technical and vocational education and the way forward.
All right, thank you very much there, Timothy Yusuf, for that background report. Now we have guests with us here in the Abuja studios as well as a remote location to discuss this subject matter in greater detail. First, we would like to welcome familiar face on Good Morning Nigeria. He's the president of the Council for the Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria. That's Koren, Engineer Kashim Ali. Engineer Ali, pleasure to have you join us again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
All right, and then we also have with us in the studios the Registrar and Chief Executive of the National Business and Technical Examination Board, NABTEB. That's Professor Ifeoma Isiugwa Banihe. Professor Isiugwa Banihe, a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Yes, and also we have joining us in our Abuja studio here the Director of Vocational Technical Skills and Development of the National Board for Technical Education, Engineer Abati Dawakin Kudu Mohammed. You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
All right, and from our Benin studio, we have Reverend Timothy Iodaro, Quality Assurance Vocational Assessor and Deputy Director, National Vocational Qualification Framework and Examination Administration. You are welcome to Good Morning Nigeria, Reverend Iodaro.
Good morning, all.
All right, Kinsley.
All right, well, let's begin the conversation by going over to Koren. Koren, of course, is at the apex of all that we're talking about in terms of technical education and an aspects, of course, of vocational education. There was the retreat that Koren had in Calabar a couple of years ago, and he came out with a communique where he painted a gloomy picture of the state of technical and vocational education in the country. Has anything changed since then, or are we in further retreat with regard to the quality of vocational and technical education in the country? Engineer Kashim Ali.
Thank you very much. Well, unfortunately, if I have to answer it simplicity, not much has changed. And this derives from the fact that the advice we gave seemed not to have been heeded. For instance, before we had that retreat, we went out to technical colleges existing in all the states of Nigeria. We counted 300 of them that we visited. Some, even at that time, were only existing in name. Some were because we could see the signboards, fainted signboards. Some had their roofs blown off. Even some that had doors had their equipment obsolete and also not even used. So, some places there were just a few people. And so that was really disheartening at a time when those caliber of personnel are required for driving the economy. For instance, when you build the house or build roads or any infrastructure for that matter, the core people that work, the people that populate the sites are not necessarily engineers. They are this level of workers. You have the craftsmen, technicians, and technologists who do the real work. And these are the people that go through that kind of training. So we tried to sell the idea. Also, I think our marketing strategy didn't seem to work. That was why we had to do another meeting recently.
Okay, thank you. I think we would like to ask you, three of you actually, should be able to talk on this now. What is the general state of affairs in our technical schools across the country? You mentioned 300. We also have on record that 199 could be said to be functional at the moment. So let me begin with Professor Abani here on this?
Yes. Well, thank you very much. I would say that technical vocational education today is it's at a story state because if you go to many of them, the infrastructure is still dilapidated. The teachers, which is of a more serious concern, because I just came back from monitoring last week of our examinations, and in some of the trades, the teachers are about to exit, and the anxiety is who is going to take over. There is problem of infrastructure, there's problem of fund, and but I think there is hope, though. There is hope because at the federal level, I know that during the last NCE, and there was this ministerial action plan suggesting that states should invest more in technical education, and some of them have started, because during the same monitoring, I visited one of the technical schools in Delta State. I was shocked. I was shocked. It was so beautiful. There was facilities and so on, but still the problem of teachers. So yes and no. Right now, the situation is bad, but there is hope.
What about Engineer Dawkin Kudu Mohammed? We don't want to come in on this.
Yes, thank you very much. We, at the current stage, the technical vocational education and training in this country is very promising. There are challenges, but these challenges are not beyond what can be tackled if there is concerted effort. Now, this concerted effort is one of the key words of getting a useful output out of the system. We have currently over 580 technical institutions that are recognized by the National Board for Technical Education. Let me start with the lowest level, and that is the technical colleges. At the technical college level, we have 173 that we know. And out of these 173, only 110 have approved programs, that is accredited programs. At the tertiary level, we have 112 polytechnics, and 27 of those are owned by the federal government. We also have about 34 and 35 colleges of agriculture and colleges of health. Now, the most important thing is not even the numbers, but two things: whether these are adequate for our requirements, whether there is enough access, that is to take our teeming youth and to train them. That is one. The second one is whether the training that we are giving at those institutions conform with the standard and conform with the requirements of the market, so that these graduates, when they come out, find a readily available employment opportunity. Now, this is a major challenge. At the technical college, this level, the quality is poor. And one of the reasons is that the quality assurance mechanism entrenched by the National Board for Technical Education are not being fully followed. Most of the state governments most of the technical colleges are owned by state governments. And when we go for accreditation, that is to ensure that there are adequate resources, physical and human, to run those programs, we do not always get an acceptance. So the quality is low. And the issues are many anyway.
All right, Engineer Dawkin Kudu Mohammed, thank you very much. We'll come back to you later on in the course of the conversation. Our principal focus, of course, has to do with technical and vocational education. If we need to ratchet it up to the tertiary level, then, of course, we'll also have some talk on that. But let's go over now to our Benin Network studios, where earlier the Reverend Timothy Iwudaro was introduced as part of the guest for this conversation. The Reverend Iwudaro, you've listened to the other guests. From your perspective, exactly what do you think is the state of technical and vocational education in Nigeria today? And by the way, take along with this, do we have a good or a clear conception or appreciation of vocational education? Because oftentimes the emphasis would appear to be on technical. Reverend Iwedaro.
I have listened very well to the discussion, and if you listen properly, you see that the statistics given, there is no coherence. Different kind of statistics are being given. However, that is not the main issue. The main issue is that we have to look at this problem from three broad perspectives. The first one is policy. What is the policy on the ground? Number two, what is the attitude? Attitude is very, very important. Attitude of those who are going to implement these policies. And then the last one is funding. We talk of funding. Now, if you take technical and vocational and training, you see it is very important. There's a difference between technical education and vocational education. Those two we must differentiate them. But however, if you look at it properly, you will see that there is the technical education in Nigeria is going down. It is not recognized. Policy does not even incubate it. Some ministry don't even have a director for vocational and technical education. Rather, they have a director for science. So these are the issues. Then look at the federal technical colleges, the state technical colleges. What do they have? Before this time, we have what we call federal technical college. Another one again, government technical colleges. So all these colleges belong to the state government. When we say government technical colleges, the one that belong to federal government, we say federal government technical colleges. But now they have renamed them. What we have is now government science and technical colleges, federal government science and technical colleges. What now happened for this change of nomenclature? You will observe that these technical colleges had 3 years of training. Vocational 1, vocational 2, vocational 3. Then it was taught who are the feeder schools to these technical colleges. Where do they recruit their students from? But from primary school, they say no, we are going to have a junior arm of these technical colleges. So these were created. Then too, they say we are now going to have science in these technical colleges. So therefore, the name will now change from federal government technical colleges to federal science and technical colleges. Then the question is, what science are they now teaching that hitherto was not being taught when the name was federal technical colleges? There's nothing. If you are taking, for instance, carpentry and joinery in the technical colleges, you must take physics, you must take chemistry, you must take mathematics, you must take English language. So what is the science that is being taught now? We discovered that it was a ploy to introduce secondary education into the technical colleges and finally nailed it. You discover that in the junior secondary school, the lower arm that was introduced, they now name it junior secondary school. Junior secondary school 1, junior secondary school 2, junior secondary school 3. Therefore, you beg will come, these are our school. Whereas this school is a technical college and it is not a secondary school. So what ought to be is that pre-vocational 1, pre-vocational 2, pre-vocational 3. So that all those who are entering into secondary school, into technical colleges, have business to do with technical education. Not as it is now. When they leave their JSS 3, some will go into technical section, some will go into secondary section. Look at it. There are more students now in the secondary section than in the technical section. So you discover that this is not supposed to be. Everybody that have things to do with technical college, they go there. So this is one of the policy. Somehow two principals there. One for the technical section, one for this for the junior secondary school section. So how do you manage this? There's conflict. Why those there, they are directing their mind toward the secondary school and neglecting the technical section? Who are the heads of these schools? Are they technically oriented, or the rest science or any of the humanities that are being appointed principals of these schools? So you begin to see, how do they procure their weapon? These are the policy trusts that is not healthy for the development of technical education. Then we come to the attitudinal one. Those who are formulating these policies are not technically oriented. Probably they read philosophy. Then they are in the ministry, dishing out policies for the schools. You have so many schools. What you give to a school to run a secondary school is what you give to a technical college to run the school. Let's look at it. Why the technical college have workshops? They require all training materials. Secondary school, they don't have workshop, but they have laboratory. Technical college, they have all laboratory. Physics, chemistry, biology, and introductory science. They have them. So you discover that technical college need more money than the secondary school. But the policy formulator, they don't know about this. They give them the same amount. And at the end, technical college, they are handicapped. Then you look at other sources. Technical college require power. While they are carrying out their equipment, their workshop practice, they require power. Which are the sources of this power? Probably an independent power source. And they require funding to be able to maintain them. Where will they collect money? And education has become a political program. You must follow their laid-down program. Collect money from any source, you have the wrath of the authorities. How is this school going to function? These are some of the things we need to discuss. As it is, you discover that there is still hope. We are not saying everything is lost. There is hope. If you go down as the registrar of NAPTEP was saying when he goes monitoring, NAPTEP over the year have done incredibly well in that they have managed what we call making the best of a bad situation. You'll be surprised to see if NAPTEP go to a technical college, for instance, welding and fabrication is going on, and you have a 3-hour examination, and the school have only one welding machine. You have 20 students. How do you conduct such an exam? And the power is not secure because the power is not reliable. It's public power. It can surge at any time. And then how long do you wait until power is restored? So NAPTEP over the year have developed a means. Instead of putting the students in disadvantage, because at the end of the exam nothing is done, it means all the students are failed. But NAPTEP will not allow that to happen. NAPTEP take them to a practical workshop, a private one, where they have equipment, they have tools, they have independent power supply, very reliable, under strict supervision, under strict monitoring. So that the economy of Nigeria is not thwarted, so that the idea of the policymaker is realized. This is what NAPTEP have been doing over the years to sustain technical and vocational education. If you take it at that level and say, we have been to a school, there are no equipment, there are no tools, therefore the examination is cancelled. You see, it has a bad effect. It's going to work hardship. So NAPTEP have been managing this, and NAPTEP require funds to continue to do this because it is not cheap. Some of those workshops, you need to pay money so that this equipment will be made available because they are incurring costs while these students are taking their practical examination. Then for that. Then you come to transport and vehicle. We require transport and vehicle for monitoring, which NAPTEP at the time doesn't have. What of the National Board for Technical Education? They are to develop curricula. Give them curricula to develop. There are no funding. What do? We remain like that. Look at all our curriculum. Where they are. They are all outdated. New things need to come in. New trades are coming. We call them emerging trades. Where are they? Two ways of doing things, but the traditional trade, for instance, you just say carpentry and joinery. There's nothing like that anymore. It has been divided in subsection because of what? Of quality. We want quality assurance to be assured. So therefore, for instance, when you talk of scaffolding, we have high-rise building. How do you scaffold such a building? So scaffolding is now a trade of its own. We need to develop the curriculum for scaffolding. I'm just giving one example. So therefore, these are the issues confronting technical education, which we...
All right. Well, the Reverend Timothy Udaro, you were already in full flight, but we'll come back to you later on in the course of the conversation. I mean, he's raised a number of points. Of course, the registrar of NAPTEP is still here, Engineer Kashim Ali, as well as Engineer Kudu Muhammad. Lady and gentlemen, a number of issues on the table right now with regard to decomposing what the challenges are with respect to vocational and technical education. There was one question I asked, which Reverend Igodaro, had sidestepped, obviously because he was, getting into greater details what's happening. That's Professor Ifeoma Esiugwabani. The question I would like to ask is, let's get a clearer understanding, because there seems to be this conflation. When you hear technical and vocational education, people just assume it's the technical aspect. Vocational is also crucial. I mean, you are supposed, the vocational aspect also supposed to provide, manpower for the hospitality industry, for instance. Can we have a clearer understanding of this, and then we know where we are with regard to the training of such persons as well?
Yeah, as I said, two of them they are not exactly the same. Those in vocational education, you see so many of them becoming entrepreneurs. And for instance, we have the catering craft, we have, like you said, the hospitality. So many of them need fund after the training. I'm glad that the Bank of Industry is helping some of them, but then quite a number of them finish and they need fund to establish. Then the technical, as he has said, we have electrical, trades, and but both of them, we have, that's why in NAPTEP we have two equivalent certificates. We have the NTC, which is the National Technical Certificate, which is for the technical, and we have the NBC, which is the National Business Certificate. And each of them has quite a number of trades, which I will not be able to enumerate here. But I think the issue is not really whether it's technical or vocational, because both of them lead to engagement into the world of work. But also, one thing that the problem we have is that of attitude, poor attitude towards vocational education. And that poor attitude is arising from the fact that many people feel that when you have NBC, NTC, it's just for you to be an artisan, and there is no room for upward mobility. And of course, you know that technical education is part of a lifelong learning, lifelong education. And so if you remember those who did the RSA and the City of Guilds in those days, which NAPTEP has taken over, many of them are professors today. Some of them are they went as far as being in high-level government positions. They did not remain there. And that is the point that needs to be made, that technical education is not a closed door. It's not, there is no restriction. It's just a basic education for now. Then that is what helps Nigerian youth to put them back to work. That's a very certificate for, to end unemployment in the country. So the question you are actually asking is important to differentiate the two. But I think the most important thing is for that certificate, what is the attitude of Nigerians to NBC and NTC today? NTC is well rated in the public service. I think it's even a level higher than the O level. But then, not all of them. So if the public sees that the products of technical education are well placed in public service, and those who choose to go into entrepreneurship or into their own business, they have fund, they are assisted to establish themselves, I think there will be a rush. Even if we establish 500,000 technical and vocational education in Nigeria, programs in Nigeria, if the products are not well placed, if there is no fund for them to establish, if the attitude, the negative attitude that prevails right now does not change, I'm afraid there may not be much progress.
Well, that's fine, Prof. Thank you very much. Part of that, Kirian, obviously from what we're discussing already, yes, it is good to have the certificate and so on and so forth, but the content, the quality of the products that you have in the marketplace also is very crucial. And Reverend Iwodaro was talking earlier about policy conception, the attitude of those, who conceive these policies, as well as the state of the schools themselves, how the schools function, how they are populated, how the schools are governed. What's your take on this? As I'm referring now to Engineer Dawakin Mohammed before we come to Engineer Kashin.
Okay, thank you very much. If you are talking about policy, you are talking about the structures that have been put in place. I think it is not policy that is really amiss here. Rather, maybe implementation of some of the policies and some aspects of the policy itself. The technical college's curriculum is designed in such a way that it produces artisans and craftsmen that are going to be well grounded with skills, knowledge, and competencies in such a way that they can easily fit into the world of work. The curriculum that we have developed really for technical colleges is a world-renowned curriculum. The standard was set by UNESCO. It is accepted. It is copied in Bahrain. It is copied in Libya. It is copied in a lot of other, in fact, even the ECOWAS has adopted that curriculum format. So the curriculum really and the planning for the training is good. Our curriculum is now the standard curriculum for all the ECOWAS. I had been to several.
So why are we
ECOWAS
the
countries.
way we are?
Yes. Now it is in the implementation.
Yes.
It is in the implementation of the curriculum. As we have already said, we do not have the facilities, the workshops, the resources, and it's all tied to funding. That is one. Two, the staffing. We have inadequate number of staff, and those staff that are there are ill-equipped, are not trained on the job. If you get any fresh graduate and push him into, even a graduate of polytechnics, and push him into the technical colleges to teach without training him to be a good teacher, a motivator, a trainer, he is not going to perform. And we have a situation whereby we have, at a time, found out that some of those staff have been there for 10 years. There is no training. You will be rusty.
Now,
so these are some of the issues.
In this connection, having listened to Reverend Iwodaro in Benin, I tend to believe that there's a disconnect somewhere. Because growing up in my first secondary school, called Colliery Comprehensive School,
yes,
we had metal workshop. Yes. We have woodwork workshop. Yes. We also had electrical workshop.
Plus technical drawing.
And technical drawing, exactly.
Yes.
And we had masters for that. We called them masters then. Now, this is a comprehensive school, which means that you can, you either go to technical area or to the other area. And the school is still one school. So what I think is going on here is that, in Nigeria, is that there is no deliberate attempt to practically implement the policies that have been enunciated by the policymakers. Yes. That's number one. And I want us to look at also the angle of government in all of this. It doesn't mean that government is not pushing to ensure that we sustain technical education in the country. What is the role of MBTE? We seem to have some issues that we're not even arriving at how they will be tackled. So maybe Dr. Kashim could come in here.
Thank you very much. You see, the problem is all of us talk about those days. I have a colleague, when we're discussing this issue, in their school, they built most of their buildings. The students built most of the buildings they have there because that was their own practicals. Things were running well. You could see furniture made that time, and you proudly put it in your sitting room. Things were being done. Even if we're not going to implement the new policies, why can't we even continue with the old ones? The point we have from what we field studies is that, and I'm surprised the Reverend is talking about incoherent statistics. It's not important at this point. I wish he would give his own so that we know whether it is also okay. We went to the field. We went out to all the states of the Federation to look at it and brought reports. That was 2009. By 2010 is when we had the retreat. And what we had a scorecard for every state. Initially, we wanted to go to the Governors Forum so that we can present it globally to them. But unfortunately, that was just when we were about going is when the Governors Forum fractionalized. At that time, we had the Deputy Governor of Bayelsa State, of Rivers State, was a member of our council. And the Permanent Secretary from Plateau was also a member of our council. We could use each of them to reach either Governor of Plateau or Rivers. But if we did that, we would be seen as partisan. So we decided, okay, let's take the scorecard to each of the governors. We did. And the truth is, even if any person has the intention of teaching, what are you teaching when the school, the buildings are or in complete disarray, destroyed? What are you teaching? I'm telling you, some places, there were reptiles, it's reptiles we found there. But this is on concurrent list. So it's the governors that have majority of these institutions. So when we took it to them, a few of them responded, in fairness to them. Lagos State, Katsina State, and Kano. Delta responded. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see it. But even at the meeting we had, Delta came with a comprehensive report of what they have done. And we're planning a visit to confirm. So it's not like things are not bad. They are bad. Let's not assume that things can do. If they have not changed in 2009, when we sent 2010, when we sent the letters to them, I don't see what they will do without any additional motivation.
Well, there's a point that we're going to fast forward to now. It's already been touched on by one of our guests, I think the guest from Benin Network Studio. We're talking about the content to say, look, these days you're finding that there's increased specialization. For instance, it was talking about scaffolding. Scaffolding as a trade. That's why you come in here, Engineer Kashin. You know, because in our opening of this program this morning, we're talking about the fact that look, Nigerians in the construction business have to reach out to neighboring countries. Some go as far as China, you know, looking for labor. And I recall that on this program, the Honorable Minister in charge of Power Works and Housing, one day, he was with another guest and another engineer. He challenged him and he said, look, tell me, you know, how many high-rise structures you have seen Nigerian engineering companies construct today. So a high-rise structure will bring to mind a scaffold. What kind of skills is the engineering industry looking for today? And what kind of persons are you seeing, Nigerians, coming to you, purporting to have those skills, and where is the gap?
The truth is, what we're even looking for that we can't get are basic skills. You need somebody to mix concrete unsupervised. And you can't get that. You have to stay there. You need someone to lay even simple things as blocks. You can't get straight lines. You need someone to do excavation. You can't get them. You need people to do finishing. You can't get them. That's why today we go to Cotonou, we go to all these other countries. In fact, even now we're going to Niger to do stoneworks in the north. So this is those we want to get the basic things right first, because even the issue of scaffolding is a very sophisticated scheme now. People are taking it at higher level.
Yes.
So it's not even for it's not for 10 colleges as it is now. It has advanced beyond that. And so, but again, it is important. But what we have as a challenge in Nigeria, and that is making us lose money, losing as much as 900 billion annually, is the lack of people to do the basic things.
That's why I asked the question, Engineer Kashin. Would those who come to you purporting to have the skills, look, I'm not, I can't lay bricks or something, but we got a job and I said, look, I present myself to you. What would you find missing in me, quite aside from the fact that, look, I'm incompetent for your purpose?
Can I just say something there?
The truth is, okay, the only essence of this discussion is because we don't even have them. Before now, the structure standard practice that if you have one engineer, for instance, you need 2 technologies, 4 technicians, and 16 craftsmen. Today, you go to the site, you can have 10 engineers maybe you have only one good. So the cone has been turned upside down. That's the situation we have. You see, that is why it is embarrassing.
So I'm sorry, all those ones, sorry. I mean, those gentlemen whom you see, these daily paid laborers, you find, they call them Kwangala in Abuja here. Yeah. If you were to go to various cities, you'll find them different. Those ones qualified to be part of.
Okay, but before we go to back to Benin, let Prof add something to this before we go to Benin.
I'm not an engineer, but you know, my experience again in the field last week was quite encouraging. I started by saying there is hope. In two of the schools that I visited, one of them, indeed, the teacher, the trainer, she said, I regret so much that I didn't know about technical and vocational education when my children were growing up. Because of what she was seeing in her school, her students actually have the skill. They have the skill, howbeit with a rickety infrastructure. But some of them are very lucky to have good trainers, and they have shops, they have projects on their own, and I saw them myself. You need to go see. I don't want to mention the names of the schools, but one of them, we were showed the furniture that the students produced. In fact, they are better than any furniture you will see in the showroom. I was shocked that it was the students that produced those furniture. And also the tiles. When you visit, you said you visit one of those schools, you will see beautiful tiles that were made by the students. And these students are already making money even while they are students. And so I think that that's just one school. But if we can replicate this all over the country, where, you know, you mentioned education, the concurrent list. The problem is that those state technical colleges, there is no money for them to actually have materials for these students to be able to, you know, produce them as these wonderful professionals. So I think the hope is not lost.
I mentioned some states.
Yes, they are
so
doing
if
well.
you are talking about Delta, surely you see excellence. You see in Lagos, you see in Katsina, you see in Kano. What about the other states? Before, these things were taken for granted. Once you ask somebody from a technical college to do you anything, you are sure you're going to get it done properly. Today, this is why because the nature abhors vacuum, if we were doing it and enough people doing it, there won't be importation of human beings from others. This is the point we are making. Yes. And we said it's not only because we want people to get employed. We are losing, there's a lot of capital flight. Nobody comes, if somebody comes from Benin Republic, for instance, and you pay him or her, he is going back home. That money will not be in your economy. He will take that money home. Yes. So, and there are many of them from different countries. So we're losing about 900 billion. Is that what can we manage that when we have youth that are all over the place?
All right, sir. Let's go back to our Benin Network Center, to Reverend Timothy Iwadora. You actually commended National Board of Technical Education in what it is doing at the moment. Now, technical education is all about skills acquisition. That's what I understand. And if that is the case, talking about students not being interested in education because of stagnation in career progression, now one wonders whether if you acquire skills, technical skills, you now go back to an office in one ministry and sit down there as a career person, or you are supposed to be doing something in practical terms. Now, I've seen in Indonesia where artisans were manufacturing aircraft. Practically, you see them doing it. They never went to any school apart from technical skill acquisition schools. And they're manufacturing aircraft as sophisticated as an aircraft can be. So that's what we're talking about. So, Reverend Iodera, you commended MBTE. Now, where do you think we have to regain the connection that was lost in all of this? Because if we didn't have a disconnect, by now we will not be talking about technical education going down in Nigeria. So what can be done?
As Kingsley stated, trying to distinguish between technical and vocational education. You see, vocational education, they are more all over the place. Skill acquisition center, they after skill. How do you perform this job? So you see, skills are independent abilities that enable one to perform a particular job. That's the definition for a skill. Then you now discover that all these vocational schools, some of them are private. They teach skills. How do you do this job? How do you do it well? But in the technical colleges, emphasis takes place on the underpinning knowledge. For instance, you want to mix sand, cement, and stone. You must know what we call water-cement ratio. These require calculations for you to know. But those in the vocational, they don't care much about that. They know mix sand and cement, you get this kind of mortar. That is a major difference between. So that is why if you even go to the NAPTEP, NAPTEP discovered about the year that many people are interested in vocational education. So they now have what we call modular trade certificate examination, which eliminate the pure sciences, which are people are not interested in. They do not like physics, they don't like mathematics, but however, the numeracy and the literacy are still there. So as be able to meet up with future demand. That is what NAPTEP is doing, modular trade certificate examination. Then you talk of the disconnect. Now, you remember some years ago, they distributed vocational equipment to all secondary schools in Nigeria. That is what we are good in doing. But after that, nobody heard about it anymore. Why? Most of those schools, they don't have light, they don't have workshop, they don't have teachers. Why do you supply them? Those things were all stolen. Today, if you go by, you cannot find them anymore. Now, what is the way forward? As we are saying, as the engineer from Korean was saying, that you ask people to set a block, you don't have a straight line. Why? Because they are not competent. If you have a training in block laying and concreting, in order to climb, you cannot just graduate from such training and start practicing. You must obtain competency certificate. You see, the National Board for Technical Education since 2012 have been trying to join together the legal framework to make it compulsory for every tradesman and women to be competent in their area of specialization, of which NAPTEP is an awarding body for all trades. The other awarding body that MBTA has approved, but NAPTEP is general for all. It's an awarding organization. Then you now come to this, there's no legal framework. What MBTA and NAPTEP is doing is approval from the Federal Executive Council. So you discover that these ECOWAS countries, after you are finished, you enroll in a center based on the National Occupation Standard, which MBT is trying to develop over the years. NBT have tried to develop the National Occupation Standard. And that National Occupation Standard for every trade is not static. It's changed all the time. So National Vocational Qualification is learning as a result of change. Now you discover that this National Vocational Qualification will enable craftsmen to be competent in their area of specialization, not academic qualification. For instance, now somebody goes out from a technical college, has sat for his exam in NAPTEP and have NTC, National Technical Certificate. That does not mean he's competent. Those is academics. He needs to go back to a training center where he will be assessed by a vocational assessor that is occupationally very competent. So it's based on the National Occupation Standard of his trade. When that one is said, depends on the unit. That unit is divided into two parts. The first one is the learning outcome. Each learning outcome, what we call performance criteria. This is where the assessor will assess to be able to ascertain the competency, either competent or not yet competent. It is when this is achieved, for instance, the liquefied natural gas, most of their staff will have NVQ, National Vocational Qualification, of competency in your area before you are admitted. Where are they now going for training? In South Africa. That is where they are going for training. And this is a drain on the economy of Nigeria. Because the Nigerian economy said it will be large, diversified, competitive, and strong, and technologically enabled. Now we are not placing more emphasis on this. How are you going to enable that economy? Is it going to be philosophically enabled, or is it going to be grammatically enabled? There's no way with that. It is technology. So there's a direct connection between skills, production, and employment. There is direct connection between these three. So it is when these skills are started, and then you are now certified competent. Many of the people working in the offices, they are not occupationally competent. So therefore, there's the need to have a legal framework from the National Assembly to make NVQ compulsory. Before you are employed, you must have what we call National Vocational Qualification, of which NAPTEP is one of the awarding bodies. 2, in every construction site, what is required by NVQ, there must be a safety officer. Go to our construction site, no safety officer. When things happen, you are on your own. There is no safety procedure, nobody talks about them, no implementation, no equipment to protect staff and tools. They are not there, but we are just constructing, and that is why you have building collapse. 2, Madam was talking of laying of ties. Very good. Before this time, ties were being brought from abroad that we are laying in Nigeria. It is subject to our weather. Our weather acts on it. And before that, the color fades away. And then you begin to make a change. So you discover that there is a need for production. Who are the people going to produce this to enhance the economy? They are the technicians. The technicians need to be trained. And if we are going to do that, we have to start all over again. How are we going to start? Let me tell you, if you start en masse, you are going to fail. Let us start from somewhere. Let's say we have 36 states in the country now, plus Abuja, 37. Let them take one technical college each. I'm not saying every trade must be there, no. If you are going to start with construction, everything, the state of the art must be there. The teachers must be trained. The university in charge of vocational and technical education, those staff must be sent there for upgrading, for training. And then they will have a place where they are to do their industrial attachment. Industrial attachment in Nigeria today is not a problem. Students from Polytechnic, from university, to find a place where we do your 3 months, 1 year is a problem in Nigeria now. Nobody is accepting them, and nobody is talking about it now. By the time we come, people will spend 1 year at home, no place to do ITF, industrial training, and then they go back to school. Then the theory continue, and at the end they graduate. They are not fit for purpose. So what are we going to do? We must start all over again. There is hope. There's no hope at all. The hope is not lost at all. We start with that. If it's only construction, if it's only mechanical trade, if it's only electrical trade, let us open with that. The following, after 2 or 3 years, we expand. 2 or 3 years, we expand. Sustaining those ones that are already there. Not to the fund, they are supposed to now divert it to the new one. And then the old one begins to die. That is what has been happening. We will not do it like that. Then we begin to look at that. Then we now come to people who are to drive this policy. Are people trained in that area? Not from the ministry. There are people trained in that area. An act must be produced to make them independent and be responsible only to the Minister of Education to brief him as their supervisory ministry. These are the people. Sometimes you have people go and procure equipment. They go and procure equipment. When they bring the equipment, they are not functioning.
All right, Reverend Timothy Iwodaro, thank you very much there. Again, we'll come back to you in the course of the conversation. And then, of course, we'll still have our guests with us here in the Abuja studios, just to indicate that, as always, we have reactions coming in from our viewers by way of tweets. You can see the Twitter handle on your screen, the lower left side of your screen. That's at NTAGMN. We'll take some of those tweets right now. Kieran.
All right, now we'll begin with Fabio Stephen S. He says the resuscitation has to be done along with that of moribund industries in order to be successful.
And we have this from Clifford Agugwese. It says revitalizing technical and vocational education in Nigeria is a strategic imperative for the country.
Now from Sani Michael or Marco G, this government talked tough on massive job creation during electioneering campaign. I think the right time to exploit technical and vocational education is now.
And Festus Akimboyewa has this with Nigeria's economy is suffering from skills gaps, and only technical and vocational education will address the gaps.
All right, also from Clifford Agwigasi, what is the state of colleges, family schools of health technology graduates in the scheme of things?
And James Oluwatosin tweets, it's a pity an engineering graduate from Nigerian University following a Chinese technician as apprentice.
Now, Aminu Modibo says the resuscitation of technical colleges and training of our youth in all aspects needed in the industry.
It says Victor Ohioswomoa tweets, if Nigeria is serious about reducing the rate of unemployment, the revival of technical and vocational education is key.
All right, Aminu Modibo once again says it is high time governments at all levels woke up from their slumber and pay attention to technical education.
And change to progress, that's Shitu, tweets, until we stop our penchant for downgrading polytechnics and technical certificates, we won't make real engineering progress.
James Uluwatoshi, let technical schools be developed and branded in such a way that it will attract more students.
All right, now those are the tweets that we are having. In the meantime, of course, there will be others in the course of the conversation. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation with our guests here, as well as the Reverend Igoraro at the Benin Network Center.
People are supposed to help people, but people help people and end up wishing they never helped anybody in the first place.
So this is what you people do. Okay? You people spray stolen vehicles. Another.
In a world of give and take, learn what it takes to give, and the world will be filled with people who value what has been given.
Now my ancestors, all of them, let God bless you.
Until then, there may just be no help. Professor John Bull, your rib-cracking comedy, takes a look at issues arising from charity and compassion this week.
You know from the bottom of my heart, I love you. And there's nothing I will not do for you. But it's not everything.
Zuzukweba, with your cap like plate for soup.
Damn. Showing at 8:30 p.m. every Tuesday and Friday on NTA Network International and Star Times.
Over and out.
Brought to you by Glow.
Welcome to the new speed of life.
Admission forms for the 2017-2018 academic session of NTA Television College JAWS into its diploma programs are now on sale. The diploma programs are in film and TV production, broadcast journalism, and TV engineering technology. Applicants are required to have at least 5 credits, including English language and mathematics at SSC, NECO, or GCO levels in not more than 1 sitting. Application forms can be obtained from the TV College Refi JAWS or at any NTA zonal centers nationwide on payment of a non-refundable fee of 7,500 naira in bank draft in favor of NTA Television College. Completed application forms should be returned to the office of the academic secretary, NTA Television College, or the Center of Purchase on or before 28th of July 2017. For further inquiries, please call 0806 980 9807 or 0703 660 7155. NTA Television College, training you to be the best you can be.
All right, you're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Before we went on the short break, of course, we took the tweets from our viewers. We still have our guests right here with us in the studios. Let's return to the substance of our conversation. Engineer Dawaki Kudu Mohammed, of course, you listened to the Reverend Igoraro. You also listened to the other contributions by the guests. Now, where do we begin to say, listen, we recognize what the challenges are, but what are the workable solutions? Is it federal government alone obviously can handle this? From what we know, how can state governments be incentivized to key into this and then begin to ensure that there are workable solutions?
Thank you very much. Yes, there are solutions, and as I said earlier, those solutions have to be from all stakeholders. The state governments are one of the key stakeholders because they are the proprietors of most of our technical colleges. The technical colleges themselves that they own, number one, what they can do is to ensure that those ones on the ground are fully equipped. If that can be done, it means that at least the ones that we do have are going to produce quality graduates that are going to impact into the economy. That is one. The second thing is for them to expand. The technical colleges are just too small in number. The National Council on Education has given a policy that every local government should have at least 1 technical college, and in that local government there should be 4 skills development centers. Well, that is a tall order with respect to the current funding situation, but that doesn't mean we cannot aim to achieve this objective, and we can do it by stages. That is one. Secondly, when we are talking of skills, it goes beyond technical colleges. Skills that are used in the industry are competency-based skills, are working skills that are attained not only in technical colleges, but elsewhere in the universities, polytechnics, and even non-formal training. And that is what the National Board for Technical Education has recognized and established the National Vocational Qualifications Framework. It is a framework whereby you can exhibit competence and be certified for that competence. Whether that competence is attained in a technical college, in a university, a polytechnic, or even when you go on apprenticeship. Now, this is where it is possible to provide a variety.
Sorry, let me interject, Dawaki Kudu Mohammed. Look,
yes,
all these policy ideas we talked about, the framework enunciated or elaborated by the National Board for Technical Education, who is to implement? You have the paperwork done already.
Yes.
Who is to implement? That's what we're talking about, the role of stakeholders, state governments now. Do you interact with state governments? What is their attitude towards the policy that is already enunciated?
Yes.
How is this, being actualized?
Okay. With respect to the technical colleges, they are being implemented by state governments, and state governments have to come into it. Now, with respect to skills in the general labor market, the National Board for Technical Education, in collaboration with NAPTEP, ITP, and several other stakeholders, are putting off the NVQs. And these NVQs are going to revolutionize the way we see skills and the way we recognize competencies. Once this is accepted in the nation and there is legal framework, that is the only thing that is missing, then there will be more acceptability of those. And we should be able to not only use our artisans that have not gone to normal formal institutions, but to recognize them, train them, and retrain them.
I think that we have a major issue here. There seems not to be synergy between the policy of the federal government and, of course, the policy that state governments are implementing. Of course, I know that education is on the concurrent list, so to speak, but it is important that your policy is implemented. You've not told us that states own more of the technical colleges than the federal government. Yes. Therefore, this implementation lies on the states. Right. No. So what are you doing to ensure that states, comply? Well, that may not be your issue, but I'd like Engineer Kashim to come in here. You're just part of. Well, let me ask this before you continue, Engineer Kashim. Now, we want to reverse the inverted pyramid, where we have more engineers than technicians, artisans and craftsmen at a construction site, for instance. Now, do you think there should be a rule that could be played, since we're in a certain technology area, that could be played by the National Board for Technology Incubation, which does similar things, such as training people in vocational or skill acquisition program?
You see, all ad hoc training programs will not help us. There has to be sustainability. And the only way to do that is when you have structured organizations dealing with these issues. Technical college, we had them. The ones we had have been allowed to die. I cited only 4 states out of 36. Even the federal government institutions are not the federal government technical college. I know one, for instance. The head there is not even a technical person. Yes, so even the federal government is not showing example, in truth. So what we need, I say, retrace our steps. Let's even go back. I'm not talking about going forward. I mean, in terms of bringing in new curriculum are necessary but let's even bring up what we have first, resuscitate them. That is the plea to the governors. The thing falls squarely under the governors. 90% of these institutions are owned by states. Yes. And they must take responsibility, because in doing it, they are helping themselves to reduce insurgency. All these insurgencies things we see is because people are unemployed. And these are opportunities for such people to be employed. So why are they being denied that? I had a meeting we had delegates from 13, officially from 18 states. We had others who came independently. And I shared with some of them. In their budget in the state, there is no allocation, is zero for technical schools. It's secondary school that they have allocation of some sort. So what are we really doing? We must change that scenario. This is really the problem. So I know what other people, look, today, I don't know if I'll be advertised if I call the name, but there's a private organization which we invited. Dangote, they have a training school that they are training people both for their own industry and for others now, because they couldn't get from the market. Okay. So there is such pockets of training that are going on. So that's why I have some people, you see them, like now in Abuja, if you see one fellow doing carpentry very well, his name will go around, the story about him will go around the whole city. He will be the only one people will be looking after. It's the same thing in most cities. We are saying it shouldn't be. So these are basic things that in other climes, and before now, we're doing without Bastion and Island. So we should get back there. After we have gone back there, then we begin to build to now catch up, because technology is a very interesting thing. You don't need to go through first principles. Once you're at a certain level, you can jump to 10th level, because it's equipment. Today, there are equipment for laying blocks. You don't even need to use your eye judgment any longer. So there are equipment for doing so many things, but you need to first of all understand the fundamentals so that you can operate those equipments well. Otherwise, even if you have them, that's why some equipments are in they will buy in bulk sometimes. Federal government will buy some bulk as a support to the states. They will give it to them. The states are not, when they bring it, they will not even know what it is. They will carry it to the nearest open space, drop it there, and then will beat it until it loses calibration.
Yeah, that's what.
So what do I see? Even if you cannot go and do, and I support him, do even one, just one technical college in all the states of the federation is a good starting point. I'm pleading with the remaining governors, that is, how many of them, 32 of them, to please just resuscitate one technical college in your state, and the scenario will change. Because these people it's self-regenerating. Once you have them doing well, they will build their own infrastructure. They will do many things on their own. So that is the point we are making.
Okay, Engineer Kashin, thank you very much. Professor Ifeoma Ishiku-Gwabani here. Well, we're not talking about stakeholder responsibility in all of this. But first, let's have a glimpse of your interaction with state governments. Where do you think the gap is? Is it that there is no philosophical appreciation of what state governments could in fact do and what they should be doing?
Well, thank you very much. I think the political will to invest money in technical education is not there in some states. We have interacted with some states, and the merging of technical education board and that of secondary is a problem. You know, if they are separated, and you have budget for technical education, you have budget for secondary education, then implementation for technical education will not be an afterthought. That's what I found out by talking with the teachers, you know. It's like there is no fund set apart or set aside for technical education. And, well, I don't know, it's also, some of them, like I said, have the wrong impression that technical education is just for training carpenters on the street. And that is a major challenge. We have started, actually, NAPTEP has started to enlighten, go to different states, and each place we have gone to, there was good reception, and there was, the attitude was really, we didn't really know that's what you are doing. We didn't know that, we didn't really know about NTC and NBC. We didn't know that this certificate is equivalent to the O-level certificate. We didn't know, we thought it's just something for the, you know, for the artisans. And they didn't also know about the modular, you know, for vocational, those who just want to know the technique, the practicals of it. They didn't know about it. And right now, the attitude is changing. So many people are now subscribing for the modular certificate, which, you know, you can just use it to go and set up your own business, and is working. So I think one of the major solutions should be to the policy issue, have a board of technical education in each state that will take care of technical education, because they said they are tired of writing, that they've been writing and writing and writing to the government, and there's no result. I think if that is done, you know, it will help. And then the training, as I said, I mentioned that earlier. Some trades are dying because there's nobody. For instance, plumbing. I don't know what's going to happen. We are talking about engineering trades and so on. Even as little as plumbing is. Oh, have you built a house? Go and call a plumber.
Plumbing is major. It's not small.
It's very major,
Call a plumber. So in many schools, that trade is dead because there's nobody to teach them.
Yeah, that's a very important point you just raised, Professor Ifeoma. I would like us to return to our Benin Network studios. The Reverend Iwodara, very briefly, in your response. Now, we'll be talking about, you know, what the stakeholder responsibility should be in our efforts to revitalize technical and vocational education. 2 points. One, what do we know at this time about the aptitude of persons who are presenting themselves for admission into technical and vocational training programs? Are these persons who are, please pardon my expression, you know, who cannot compete, you know, at the secondary school level? Are they just looking for anything? You know, in those days, if a child wasn't particularly doing well, so go and learn work, That's what. Secondly, what do we know about the state of teacher education? Because as Professor Ifeoma was saying, I mean, if teachers are dying out in terms of plumbing, what do we know? There used to be federal government, Federal College of Education Technical. There was one at Akoka, University of Lagos. There was another one at Gombe, you know, and elsewhere. Do we have the colleges of education producing teachers, or are they just university graduates? So, attitude of students who are seeking enrollment into technical programs, and then the teachers to train them. Briefly.
Thank you very much. Those people who present themselves for technical education, you see, that was the old view that they are either drop out, they are not very good. I want to tell you that the content of technical education exercises the human intellect to the utmost limit, that at the summit, the mind will function at great heat. A technical candidate presenting himself is good. What we need to know on that student, we need to find out what we call an assessment. You have to do an assessment on that learner to find out his natural inclination, his natural disposition. And when you are able to detect that, you'll be able to send that person to that area that he's interested in. And I'm telling you, he's going to excel. However, as we were saying, for the other aspect of it, number two, there need to be what we call skill areas. That is the engineering, all the branches of engineering, we call them skill sectors. They are the ones that will develop these skills that will be used, and this skill will be transferred. But for the teacher education, there is no continuous professional development for them. In other climes, every technical teacher is given CPD, and the content of that CPD, you must attain it within 1 year. After that 1 year, it will be added to another year's own because you were not able to attain them. At the end of the second year, you are not able to attain them, then you'll be out of the system. Until you are able to attain them, you cannot return. So the teacher education program is also dying. Go to the various universities and colleges of education, technical. There are no tools, there are no equipment. The teachers there themselves, they have no CPD. So in fact, it's a full circle that we need to break in from one point and move towards the circle, the center. Therefore, let us restart again. The teacher education center restructured, the equipment supplied. The teachers have their continuous professional development so that they are occupationally very competent. It is then they can impart knowledge on those who are to come after them, training the trainers. Without that, we are moving in a vicious circle and we are not going anywhere.
So at this point, we would like to thank you, Reverend Timothy Iwodara, for your very, very, should I say, comprehensive analysis of the situation. It goes to show that you really have an idea of what we really talked about this morning. Thank you very much indeed for being part of the show today. All right, Reverend Timothy Iwodara is the Quality Assurance Vocational Assessor and Deputy Director, National Vocational Qualification Framework and Examination Administration. Now we are back to Abuja, and it's time to get some, last thoughts, on this program gradually. But let me come down to you, Abati Dawaki Kudu Mohammed. Now, you talked about the states, as Kingsley did raise with the remedy order on the issue of a stakeholder responsibility, right, that is lacking. Now, what does MBTE intend to do about this? Because if the majority of these schools are in states, then you may have difficulty ensuring that the policy implementation is done appropriately.
Well, as far as the technical colleges are concerned, the National Board for Technical Education has provided a two-pronged approach to this. One is stakeholder engagement. We are engaging the state governors, trying to give them the view or the overview of what are the issues and how they can be able to assist. The second one is to provide equipment. We at the National Board for Technical Education have been trying to source for funds nationally and internationally, and TED Fund, when they were ETF, were able to provide some degree of equipment to some technical colleges. So these are some of the two ways we are trying to improve the technical colleges.
All right, Engineer Dawaki Kudu Mohammed, thank you very much. Again, let's quickly take some of the reactions from our viewers. Adeolu Afolami tweets, now the Reverend has said the right thing. We're only concerned about the academic issues. This is our problem. Wrongly does he adds.
Yes, and Adeolu, Chika Ugu actually says, thanks to Reverend Timothy for unveiling the hidden incapabilities of government towards the vocational and technical education.
And now this is from Miyaki Adams. Miyaki Adams tweets, the educational sector needs to be well funded because it is key for the development of the economy.
And from Engineer Toba, we must realize that polytechnic and technical education is vital in national economy. Government isn't working to make them great.
And we have this from Engineer Mustafa. Engineer Mustafa, of course, has a suffix. It says MNNC, that's a member of the Nigerian Society of Engineers. It says, to get technician competency recognized by international companies, I had to obtain NVQ 1 and 2 in the UK because my first degree wasn't recognized.
All right, from Ibro E. Chawai, let's equip the technical schools first. The equipment at the schools presently are outdated and moribund.
And then we have this from Sonny Michael Markoji. He said, we lay too much emphasis on certificates. That's why most of our graduates as electrical engineers can't even repair common stabilizer.
From Dele Jackson Solomon, my moderators, do we still have functional, technical, and vocational education in Nigeria? You can't even differentiate them from conventional ones.
All right, those are the tweets that we have, by the way, just to indicate there, Sonny Michael Amanko, it's not the business of electrical engineers to be repairing stabilizers. Of course, you have technicians and technologists, to work on that. But the key points that, the tweets have indicated are very well in addition to the contributions.
But anybody who can take those skills,
of our very guests.
If you are an engineer and want to take those skills, because I have some engineers today who are carrying out repairs of computers. They can also acquire the skill to do that.
Absolutely, yes. if they are so inclined. Let's thank our three guests here with us here in the studio. We're already signed up with Reverend Timothy Godaro from our Benin Network Studios. As always, President of Koren, that's Engineer Kashimale. Thanks a lot for your insights. We also would like to appreciate Engineer Dawaki Kudu Mohammed, is Director of Vocational, Technical and Skills Development of the National Board for Technical Education. Engineer Mohammed, thanks a lot for being with us today.
Thank you.
And last but not the least, of course, is the Registrar and Chief Executive of the National Board for Business and Technical Examination Board, NAPTA, Professor Ifeoma Isiugo Abani here. Thanks a lot for being on Good Morning Nigeria today.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move to sports now. To the world of sports, really. Reigning champions, Real